So this is the handout. Whoops, let me get to the beginning. This is a very short handout. It's 2 pages, organizing Google Docs and other files in Google Drive. I want to emphasize that you will open your Google Drive to see all your current files that you have placed in Google Drive. It doesn't matter if it's a Google Doc, a Google Sheet, a Google Slide, a PDF, or other files like PNGs, which are pictures, JPEGs, which are pictures. It could be a Word file. It could be a PowerPoint. It could be any file. It doesn't matter. You can do what we're going to do today, organizing those files any way you would like. Now, realize that if you have a Word doc that you made in a Microsoft Word product that you have uploaded to Google Drive, as long as you don't open it, it will stay a Word doc. But the minute you try to open it, Google will convert it to a Google Doc. That's not a bad or a good thing. It's personal preference. But just realize that if all you're doing is organizing, then it really doesn't matter. But it's up to you what you want to do about that. Any file can be organized. So the first thing we're going to do is make some folders. If you're in a school, then it might be a good idea to make a year for a folder for a year. So the current year would be 23, 24, almost over. Inside that folder, you would maybe have reading, math, science, social studies. When I was teaching, I taught Algebra 2 and pre-calc. So I would have a folder for pre-calc and Algebra 2. Then within that folder, I would have quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, quarter 4. And then inside of those, I would have the chapters that I taught in those quarters. I realized when we replaced our textbooks that the new textbooks weren't the same order. And so the files from previous years were kind of a jumbled mess compared to the new textbook. So I would suggest strongly that instead of doing chapters or something like that, maybe in reading, you do a folder for poetry and a folder for fiction and a folder for writing, or however you want to organize your reading files. In math, you could have a folder for fractions and another one for whole numbers, or you could do computation in one folder. If you're at an upper level, equations in another, etc. In science, you could have whatever you're studying in the various categories. If you're doing a unit on amphibians, then you would have a folder on amphibians. Social studies, same way. Maybe you're doing a unit on maps, so you would have a folder on maps. If you're doing personal files, then that might be family. Have another one for recipes. In our family, we have a recipes folder where I started out when my children would call me after they'd moved away from home for recipes. I started putting those in there, and then they started adding recipes of things they found that they thought we might like, and so forth. It works really well for that purpose. I have a DKG folder, and it has all sorts of things in it. Now, a lot of my stuff is on my own computer, but if I need to share it with someone, or I want to be able to, now that I've moved to Georgia, if I want to be able to see it when I'm in Illinois versus when I'm in Georgia, then I might put it in my Google Drive, because my computer that's here in Georgia doesn't leave my desk. The monitor on the laptop is not reliable, so I have an additional monitor, and I don't ever take this computer anywhere. I have another one that I do take with me. So that would be a reason. So you just have to think about what you're doing and why. Some people do everything in Google. Other people do some of it on their computer using Word and some of those Microsoft options, and others split between the two. So it's really up to you. We're going to talk about organizing Google Drive tonight. So we choose, with our Google Drive open, we choose New in the upper left corner. When you choose New, then you get this box, and we want to choose New Folder. As soon as you choose New Folder, then you open up here and you get a new folder. So you then have to change the untitled folder, and I've put that in the directions. Erase the untitled folder and enter the name you've chosen. I chose to enter 24-25, getting ready for the next school year. Now, I will tell you that one of the things I found is that if I create files to use with my classroom, The next year, I would simply make a copy of that folder with everything from that year ready for next year. I would change the name on the new folder so that it's for the next year, in this case, 25, 24, 25. That's this new folder. The old one would be 23, 24. And that means everything I had last year, I now have for next year in one fell swoop. It's over, it's ready for me to use. The files in the new folder then can be modified. But keep in mind, if I modify a file, try it in the classroom and don't like it, I don't have to keep that file. I can go back to my old folder because the one I used last year worked better, bring that back. So I just like the fact that I have a backup for the files that I had last year. Okay. All right. So that's the process. Notice it says step 2 of making folders inside of folders, double click to open the folder and then repeat these steps. So that's what we're going to do now. So my personal folder is very crowded with many, many things. And so I decided I have a second email address that I use for crafting things, whether I get a knitting pattern that I buy online or a Cricut pattern or something like that. I have that stuff all come to that email address so that I don't have to go hunting for it in my personal address. So I'm going to go here because it doesn't have a lot in it. And that way it's less cumbersome. In fact, everything you see on the screen right now, I brought over from my files in my personal file, or I brought them from my computer just for the purposes of this presentation. So I need to create some folders. So I'm in my drive. Notice it tells me where I am. I go to new, just as the directions said. At the very top, it says new folder. So I click that. Now I'm going to erase the untitled folder and I'm going to create a folder called DKG. Of course, you're going to create the folder that you want. The next step is to create another folder. So I'm going to create one called so in my DKG folder, I'd like to create one for my chapter. So I opened, notice I was in my drive. I clicked DKG, double clicked, it opened. My menu here tells me where I am. Be sure you don't click somewhere by accident. So now I'm here. It tells me I was in my drive, then I went to DKG, and that's where I am. So now I'm going to click new again and go to new folder. This is a very repetitive process. So now I'm going to create a folder for my chapter called Alpha Row and create. There it is. I want another folder in here. I serve, and the reason I'm doing this is because I serve on the Illinois State Organization Communication and I can't type and talk at the same time, Publicity Committee for 23 to 25. Create. And I could add more and more as you see. Let's say that I want to open my Alpha Row folder. So now notice my path, my drive, DKG, Alpha Row, and I want to create a folder in there called News and Views. News and Views is the name of our monthly newsletter. So I would now have a place to keep those. Let's say that I want to have another folder in there called Webmaster because I do master the website for my chapter. Okay. Now you will notice at the top I have multiple buttons, and every time I mouse over those, they gray. And the nice thing is that instead of going up here to the corner to back up to my drive, I could just click here on drive, or I could click here on drive. Either one of those choices will get me back to my drive. But I wanted you to see how you get that menu. Now, I want to go one more thing here. So I'm going to open DKG and I'm going to open Alpha Row. Notice what happens if I open that News and Views folder. The menu was too long, Google felt. And so it took off that front part, which was my drive and DKG. But if I click on those three dots, it shows me what's hidden under those dots. So my complete path is my drive to Google, to DKG, to Alpha Row, to news and views. Okay. So once the newsletter comes in, I could save it here and then I would know exactly where it is. And that's an easy process when you're already getting an email with that newsletter attached. Okay. Now I'm going to go back to my drive and I'm going to open the crafts folder. And so possibly in here, I want to create a folder called Cricut. Anything to do with my Cricut, I can put in there. And of course I could have files in there. I could do cards, I could do t-shirts, whatever, if that's what I wanted to do to keep those files in there. So there we are. I've got my organizational structure. I've started. Right away, I want these silhouette files to go in the Cricut folder there. This is some files. I learned to do shadow boxes from Sylvie Olson at Creative Arts Retreat a few years ago. Hope you're going this year. If I want those files to go in my crafts folder, I could pick them up and drag them there. Notice if I pick them up there and drag them there, they would go in there. But I want to show you a little faster way. I can right click on that and go to organize, and I can go to move. I could also make this silhouette folder a color if I wanted. I'm not going to, but I could. I'm going to move that. When I say I want to move it, I come up with suggested list. And of course, the place I want to move it is this Cricut folder. If there's nothing in the suggested list, or if where you know you want to put it isn't in the suggested list, you can click on all locations. It will show you that you could put it in your shared with me folder. Now, it's not something that was shared with me, so I'm not going to put it there. I could put it if I had a shared computer. I don't share this to another computer directly. I can always get to it online, so I don't bother. I don't have any shared drives either. So I'm going to go to my drive, and I'm going to get to the same place I would have if I'd opened crafts and then my Cricut folder. The folder is empty, but when I say move silhouette files to my Cricut folder, now I'm going to open the crafts folder and you can see that in my Cricut folder, there are those silhouette files. And notice my address up there. My drive to my crafts folder, to my Cricut folder, and there's my silhouette files. So I'm going to click on my drive again. All right, so that is a start on the next part of our handout. So you'll notice it says move current files to the folder. I can move whole folders, as you just saw me. That was a folder, wasn't a file. Doesn't matter what it is. I suppose I should put a slash here and say move current files or folders to the folder. We're going to move one file at a time, and we're going to do that just the way you saw me do it. Locate the file or folder that you want to move. This is about moving back to my drive, which I already showed you. Right-click on the file you want to move or the folder. Go to organize in this list that shows up and then move. And you can either choose all locations or go through the suggestions to see if where you want to move it is there. You're going to repeat. This is only a 2-page handout because so much of this is repeat, repeat, repeat. So let me go back to my drive and let's move this capture list to the DKG folder. So I'm going to say organize, move, and I'm going to pick the DKG folder. And since it's suggested, I don't have to go looking for it. All right. Now I could go ahead and do that for everything that's here. Please notice it says capture list PNG has been moved to my drive, from my drive to DKG, to crafts, no, to DKG. So that's where it is. And you can see it right there, capture list. Okay. All right. So I could do that for every one of these. Right click, go to organize, go to move, and choose where I want to put it. Especially if you have lots of files to organize, there is a much faster way. So let's go back to the handout. That's what this is all about. Move one file, repeat, repeat, repeat until you have them all moved. But there are some other ways to do things. And the top two techniques up here are a way to do lots of files at one time. So jumping around a list, and that's literally what you're going to do. So let's say that I have 10 files and I only want the second one and the fifth one and the eighth one to go into another folder. This allows me to click all three of them at once and move them. So here are the steps. Click on the first file, then hold down the control key on the keyboard. Keep holding the key down while clicking on other desired files. All right, so let me model that for you. So I'm going to click on this first one and this fourth one. And this, I think this is the sixth one. So the rule is click on the first one, hold the control key down, which is on my keyboard, it's below the shift key. There's one underneath both shift keys. So if you're left-handed, you'll probably want to click the control key on the right so that you can move your mouse with the left, or you're on your trackpad. If you're right-handed, you want to hold the one on the left with your left hand and then move your mouse. So I clicked on the first one and the fourth one and the sixth one. They're all selected. If I right click on any one of those, and it says that in the directions, make sure your mouse is on one of the highlighted. It doesn't have to, you can't highlight them all. Sorry, you can't put your mouse over all of them at once, but you can put it over one. And when you put it over one, the rest will come along. So when I right click on this, I get the option to organize and move. And it says where, and we want to move those to DKG. So I say move. Now let me open the DKG folder, and you can see that they are there. Now I really want this chapter brochure to be in the Common Pub Committee folder. I could simply right click, organize, move, and move there. But when they are in the same folder, basically next to each other, I can grab it and drag it up there. And notice it's no longer there. It's now inside the Common Pub folder. And you always have a description of where it is up here at the top. My Drive, DKG, Common Pub. So I'm going to go back to My Drive. I'm sorry, I want to go back to DKG. Is there anything else there that I might want to move? Well, the rest of these really are general information. So I will just leave them there. Okay. All right, let's go back to My Drive. What else have I got here? Well, I have a chapter brochure. I have the DKG grant for web activities. I have a sign in for the DKG website. Those are all communications things. I don't want thoughts. I don't want the untitled document, whatever that is. So how do I do all of these? They're in a row. I don't need to skip around. This is even quicker. And imagine if you had 10 files and they all needed to move into a folder. Pretend that this is number 1 and this is number 10, and there are 8 in between. I click on the first one. I hold the shift key down, not control. Control is pick and choose. Shift is a group. So here is my first one. I've held the shift key down, keep it holding it down, click on the last one. Remember, that's number 10. So pretend now I have 10 files there. I right click, go to organize, move, organize, move. And I pick Common Pub, and I can click move here, or I can click move here. Not sure why they didn't all go, so we'll do it again. Click move. There we go. Now I must have clicked in the wrong spot, and now they're all in there. Okay. Now what? Well, again, I could move others by just right click and move, or I could leave them there. What if you decide you don't want one in the folder? You want, I have 2 chapter brochures in there. Why don't I move one of them into my Alpha Row folder? So I go here to organize, and I go to move, and I pick Alpha Row. And I can either click move up there or move down here. and I moved it there. So it's in my alpha row folder. There's that chapter. So you have that option, and please notice it's very clear. Jumping around a list to select items, that's control, and selecting all items in an ordered list. And that's really, I should have put the word ordered in there. You're doing only clicking on the first and you're clicking on the last. The shift key has to be down while you're clicking on the last in the list, okay? And that's a quick way to move multiple files in the same folder. Again, it works with any files. And I would be remiss if I didn't point out that you don't have to be in Google Drive for that technique to work. If I go here to my pictures and I open, whoops, not enough pictures in there to deal with. Let's find one that I have. Oh, lots of pictures. All right, so let's say I'm going to pick these. And sometimes it's easier to go up here to details and change that view to small icons. So I'm going to go down here and I have names instead of icons. So let's say that I want, obviously this is not fireplay, it's a fireplace. There's a picture of it. I need to change the name. Now keep in mind, I'm on my computer, I'm not in Google, but I wanted to show you that those techniques work. Let's say I want to choose fireplace, and then I've got some others down this list randomly that I want to pick. So I click the first one, I hold down the control key, and I click the second, or click another one, and one more. Those 4 files then are all highlighted, and I can do several things with them. I could go up here to the top, and I could copy them. They're all copied now. Now I'm going to go back to pictures and I'm going to create a new folder called test, just so that you can see what happens. I open that folder and right click and paste. There they are. So I took all 4 of them. Same technique. Click on the first one, hold the control key, click on the others I want, and then do what I right click to see what you want to do. And then I would, if I go back to that folder, I forget which one it was. Oh, I know, it was down here. Let's go here. I'll just leave this. If I go here and I click on this one and I hold the shift key and I go down here and click on this one, notice first and everything in between in all the rows and columns till I got to gloves. Now, what if I decide I don't want gloves? Well, now I'm going to pick and choose. So I hold on the control key and click gloves, and that one's off. And now I will only get these things rather than, so we'll just go back to that test folder. I hit the up arrow. Whoops, I want to be in pictures. And I had a test folder here, and I'll right click, and up at the top, down here at the bottom is paste, or I could do Control V, and all those things that I chose ended up in there. So it works on a computer as well. It also works in emails. So keep that in mind. Practice those skills. They're time savers, especially when you have 50 files that you want to move. All right. So last thing, that was for files that are already in your Google Drive. What if you create a new file? Well, there are 3 ways to do it, and they're listed at the bottom of the second page of the handout. By the way, this handout, the link to this handout will be on the Facebook page with this handout. Okay, and I'm sorry, with this video. When you download the video, don't forget to download the handout. It's just 2 pages. It won't take very long, and the video won't be very long either. All right, so let's say that I want to create a file. So I go here to new, and we'll just create a Google Doc file. And I'm just going to type the word test up here in the interest of time. I'm going to click up here, and it does transfer whatever's in the first line into the title. If you want it to be a different title, then you can do a different title. You just highlight that, delete it, but notice what it says. It says test in my drive. So that's where it's been placed. You know, Google does everything as you do it. So it's already in my drive. So I'm going to go back here to my drive, and which one of these? It's this one right here. And it should say test instead of, I don't know why it didn't think it may. It's called test when I open it, but it's not called test in the list. I wonder why. Probably because I did it too quickly or my internet did not keep up. I'll let you play with that, but you'll notice, oh, there it is. Now it's there. So it just took a little while for the internet to catch up. So let's say that I want that to be in a folder. So you saw me do it. I right click on it and I go to organize and I go to move. And now I pick a file where I want it to go. We'll put it in my crafts folder. And when I open my crafts folder, there it is. So that's option one. Once your folder system is established, you can add a new file to the folder in the same way. Right-click on the new file, choose Organize, Move, and then either use all locations or the suggested to find the file where you want to put it, or find the folder where you want to put it. What are other options? Well, there is another option. There's two more options. So we'll create another new file. This time we'll do a Google Slides file. And we will call this test test 2. And I'm going to put that up there as well. We'll give the second for the internet to keep up. Notice what it says up there. Test 2 is in the crafts folder. Why is it in the crafts folder and not in my drive? Well, that's because when I was putting the first test into the crafts folder, I stayed in the crafts folder. So if you want a file to be in a certain folder, you can make that happen by being in the folder that you want to put it in. So for example, if I want to do something for Alpha Row, I open my Alpha Row folder. Now when I go to News, to New, and Google Sheets, we'll call this Test 3, and we'll see. I think I have to put a name up here. Test. It's telling me that my internet's not working fast enough. You notice it says saving up here. Oh, now it says save to drive. So why did it save it in the drive? And it'll eventually give it a name, test 3. It's just got to catch up with my internet. There it is. It's caught up now. Test 3 is there. What if I want it in my news and views folder? Well, if I decide that later, I can always drag it up there and put it in. And now it's in there. So that's your options for getting new things. You have 3 choices. Either wait till you get it all made and then follow the pattern we did with everything else, right click and organize and move, or oh, I know what I forgot to show you. So the last one, the one here in the middle is this one, and I forgot to show you. If you open a new file, we'll just do a Google Doc, and I'm just going to type example here. If you go up here to File, there is a Move option in the File menu, and you can say, I'd like to move it to my crafts, and move. And it's an untitled document because I didn't take the time to put one up there, but you'll notice that now it is. And if I give it a second, it will eventually show up in my crafts folder. So let's go back here and go to my crafts folder. Here's my 3 dots. So I go to my drive and I go to my crafts folder, and there's my example right there. I just put it in at 8:48. So that is how you can move things around in your Google Drive, create your folders first, and then move things. Or what if at the last minute you decide, oh, wait a minute, I need another folder in my crafts folder. So got my crafts folder open. I click new, I click new folder, and I say sewing. So now I have, so you don't have to create everything to start with. You can certainly work on it as you build your different files and folders. Okay. If you have questions, my email address is at the bottom of the handout. You can easily write me and ask questions. I'll happily answer those. And I hope you have a good rest of the week. And if you're seeing this a few weeks down the road, that's perfectly fine. I look forward to hearing from you.